Jaguars 37, Colts 20. Jags move to 4-2. Colts fall to 3-3 here. Colts still haven't beaten the Jags in Jacksonville in quite a while. Gardner Minshew, of course, got the start for Anthony Richardson. There was a report before the game started that Anthony Richardson, not only we were talking, is it 4 to 6 weeks for the AC joint injury? There's a talk that he might have season-ending injury or surgery. So, yeah, not great news for the Colts. I mean, not great news for just NFL fans if you want to watch Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew, who I was complimenting for his work in games where Richardson got hurt, has now had 2 rough games in his actual starts. He kept throwing the ball to the defense. Did you just see? So the look on Sam's face is he just got to the column that says turnover-worthy plays for Gardner Minshew. That's exactly what it was. And if you want to tell the people what number they might see once the premium stats go live later today.
As of right now, he has 7 turnover-worthy plays. Is that a record?
No, it's not a record. John Skelton exists.
Is 10 in a game combined a record?
I think Josh Freeman, when he was off the street, start on Monday Night Football, was in the 7 to 10 range.
7 to 10 range
on like 25 dropbacks.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely been games that were close 8, 9, or 10. I think
7 is.
I think
wild.
I mean, I felt it. I felt it watching it. I really felt like, I got the 7 boxes going. I'm watching all the games. I look up, and Gardner Minshew's hitting safeties in stride.
Yeah. And
it was not good. It was bad. It was a bad game.
Somehow, he almost, there was a brief moment where there was a comeback being threatened. It's like, despite everything, we're somehow not out of this and working our way down the field. And then Minshew has probably the worst of all of the turnover-worthy plays. Just lofts the ball straight to a safety in the end zone. And you're like, what are you doing, Gardner? It was just what we hadn't really thought of was the pressure of Gardner Minshew returning to Jacksonville, the team that
had not thought of
Minshew mania. And then it just completely fell apart.
I know you've done a little bit of research on starts for rookies, right? Starts to their career, 5 weeks in, 6 weeks in, or whatever. And you sent me some numbers the other day to remind me. Gardner Minshew had a passer rating of about 105 and was off to an outstanding start as a rookie when he had to fill in.
Yeah, through 5 weeks, which was, up until yesterday, the numbers for Gardner Minshew's rookie season were insane. It was I'm trying to find the tweet. I tweeted him out. They were 9 touch. Here we go. Completing 67% of his passes for 7.8 yards per attempt. That's a pretty good number. 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 105.6, and a really healthy PFF grade as well. Through 5 weeks, you would have been reasonably well convinced that Gardner Minshew was actually an amazing find, like a steal. We've discovered a quarterback.
Purdy-like even.
Right, buried in the draft that nobody saw coming. This guy's amazing. In addition to, having the crazy swag and the aviators and the jorts and all this thing. You're like, we found the guy. And then, Gardner Minshew does things like this. And you're like, okay, no, not so much.
That was, this is Gardner Minshew's maybe closing in on. Look, I felt way more confident in Minshew just before this game, right? I mean, because not to throw him away after one game, but there's a lot of parts of his career that don't make sense because of that incredible start on a Jacksonville team that had bad weapons, right?
Yeah.
They had bottom 5 pass catchers and offensive line that particular year. So in this world where we're always trying to separate the quarterback from his supporting cast, that was almost even more impressive for Minshew. Clearly he hasn't kept it going. And like I said, when he came in for Anthony Richardson back week 1 and then in week 5 last week, looked really good. Completing about 80% of his passes and moving the ball. This game, though, there was just too many throws into coverage. There was a strip sack in there and had a couple dropped interceptions, 3 actual interceptions, and they weren't bad luck. I mean, they were just sailing. He was just sailing passes over the middle of the field, misreading linebackers, as you mentioned, in the end zone on one. I mean, it was all pretty bad.
Yeah, just a bizarre game. I mean,
the one in the end zone's 4th and 5. He's just kind of chucking it up, but
it was still it
was just short. It was just
by a
incredibly
mile.
short. And again, this was the game where you just kind of saw arm limitations in there too. Passes short, overthrowing over the middle, the whole thing.
Yeah, but just a horrendous game by Minshew. And as I said, despite all that, they actually there were brief periods where it looked like they weren't completely out of it, and then Minshew just took it back under control and threw the ball away again.
On the other hand, we've talked up Jacksonville's defense a little bit, what they did against the Chiefs, what they've done against the Bills. A lot of guys played pretty well here. Devin Lloyd made his return at linebacker. He had one of his best games of his career, the second-year linebacker. Foye Oluokun had a huge game for the Jags. He'll grade extremely well, especially in coverage. And I had predicted maybe a Trayvon Walker breakout game. And, it wasn't this 3-sack gem or anything like that, but as expected, got a little bit more pressure. One of his best pass rush win rates of his 1+ year career, Trayvon Walker. And a lot of it was against Blake Freeland, who did have to start this time at right tackle for Braden Smith. Freeland wasn't as bad as he was in previous weeks, but, there's just times where he's big, long, and skinny and just gets bullied a little bit. So Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, couple good games as pass rushers for the Jags.
Yeah, it's not only is he generally overmatched at this point in his NFL career, but it's also a pretty bad matchup going up against, literally the most athletic edge rusher to ever enter the NFL, who's carrying some significant weight with him. If he decides he wants to bull rush you've got some problems.
Yeah, that's it. This was an interesting one where I don't think Trevor Lawrence was particularly sharp. He also gets hurt on his last snap. They try to run a little bootleg. He tries to kind of stumbles coming out of the boot, gets sacked, gets twisted around. I don't know how many Twitter doctors you may have looked at. I saw Dr. Chow's quick analysis. He thinks he'll be back even on a Thursday night game against the Saints, but it's just something to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor wasn't the most sharp. I thought
No, it's not a good game by him.
Not a great game for him. There was a late interception. There was another one that could have been weird, almost intentional. I mean, some weird decisions in there, I thought, by Lawrence. And both touchdowns were really well schemed up. A little flatten up on one. We had, Christian Kirk up the sideline, really well schemed on a little slot fade type of play where busted coverage by Indianapolis, and the Jags took advantage. Travis Etienne also ran the ball well, a couple of those explosive plays that he's showed these last couple of weeks. Jags, it was a good all-around team win for them. I thought defense played great and got some help for Trevor Lawrence when he wasn't his sharpest.
Yep. Zach Moss still out-snapping Jonathan Taylor, albeit it's close, and Taylor had the big play in this game, like the only big play from either one of them, so maybe that starts to swing back towards Jonathan Taylor going forward.
So Jags moved to 4-2, Colts 3-3. This was for first place in the AFC South. Jags starting to maybe round into form here in what people expected in the preseason.